Good morning, and certainly welcome to each and every one of you this morning on this historic day for us. 123 years ago next month, a horrific series of events happened in our community. Blacks were murdered, chased from their homes, and stripped of their power. Time and evil deeds tried to hide the brutal secrets of our history. But 123 years later, time has brought us together today. I am proud that New Hanover County and the city of Wilmington have joined to lead in a community-wide commemoration effort. I am your Chief Diversity and Equity Officer for New Hanover County, Linda Raleigh Thompson, and I am so proud to be here today, standing on this beautiful park dedicated in the memory of those who suffered great losses. Today we will share some of those highlighted events with their organizers and answer questions about those events. But here first, and importantly first, to give brief remarks from our county and our city, our Commission Chair, Julia Bozeman, and Wilmington Mayor, Bill Sappho.
Thank you, Linda. I want to first acknowledge you and your work leading the county's Office of Diversity and Equity. Your passion and the work your team has done over the past year in partnership with our community is helping to remove barriers, address inequities, and provide greater opportunities for all people to thrive. So thank you. I also want to recognize my fellow commissioners who are here with me, Madam Vice Chair Deb Hayes, Commissioner Rob Zappel, and our partners at the city, the NAACP, and so many others who are making this upcoming 1898 commemorative events possible. In 2000, the General Assembly established the 1898 Wilmington Race Riot Commission, and when I became a senator in 2005, I was fortunate enough to be appointed as co-chair. The goal of the commission was to accurately document the significance of the history of 1898 through in-depth research and conversations with the community. It left an unknown number of residents dead, disenfranchised blacks, and helped spread legally sanctioned race-based segregation that has detrimental and lasting impacts. My involvement on the commission was really eye-opening. Up until becoming a senator, I didn't even know about 1898, and I grew up in Wilmington. I was never taught anything about it in school, never taught what the black community endured during that time and in the many years that followed. It was swept under the rug for decades, and that is a shame, because that real and tragic history shaped our community, and the pain lingers to this day. It's important to know our community's distinct past and what so many generations have endured so that we can heal forward together. So I'm glad we are no longer ignoring the events of 1898 and are instead commemorating them with acknowledgement and education. I want to thank everyone who was a part of this year's commemoration for your continued dedication to help us remember, heal, and discover our strengths as a community together. Mayor Sappho?
I also want to thank Linda and the city and the county teams for putting this together and to commemorate this very important and historic event in our community's history. Together, today we gather united in our resolve to move Wilmington forward and continue the healing the wound that was inflicted more than 123 years ago. We gather to mourn the lives of that were lost and reflect on the worst moment in Wilmington's history. But let's not overlook the significance of this moment. Here we stand in solidarity with our neighbors who look differently than us, who worship differently than us, who think, speak, and experience life differently than us. And we do so in the very spot where a century ago people were killed for these very same differences. 1898 left our community broken But today, 123 years later, we continue the work of healing and reconciliation. Just a few hundred feet away from us stand our very own Black Lives Do Matter in Racism Now art installation. What a powerful image to see those 8-foot tall letters against the monument paying respect to the 1898 massacre. It's a reminder of how far we've come and where we are going. Last year, City Council voted unanimously to adopt the Rise Together initiative, focusing on developing constructive and meaningful legislation to ensure this is a community where every person can share in the same opportunities of prosperity and quality of life. And every day we commit to doing the work to make Wilmington a better and more equal city for all people. November 10th was a dark day for Wilmington, but today I look before me and I see light and hope. Wilmington endured devastating loss in 1898. Once a thriving and diverse community for all, we had an integrated and pioneering government, but we were robbed of those very advances. Believe me when I say we're working hard so that one day Wilmington, despite what we've been through, will be known as a bastion of equity, hope, and light for all people. And I just want to make a note that November of 2008, when this very monument and memorial was dedicated, and I had the opportunity as the mayor, the honor as the mayor, to help dedicate that memorial, and Mrs. Todd was here, Mrs. Hankins was here, Councilmember Laura Padgett was here, and all of the hard work that went into making this memorial a reality. I was very proud to see out amongst that crowd Mrs. Todd and others whose families and folks were impacted by this very incident, and the families of those who were the perpetrators that were there together, working together for reconciliation. That's what Wilmington is about, is bringing people together, coming together to heal these wounds that were awful for our community and for members and citizens of our community. And I just want to say thank you, Ms. Todd, for your public service, not only in our school system, but what you did to make this memorial a reality. I know that you and a lot of other people were involved in this, but I just want to say thank you on behalf of the citizens of Wilmington for this phenomenal and beautiful memorial that this community deserves. And now we can always reflect and say, this is the way Wilmington does it. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mayor Sappho. New Hanover County pays my salary, but I work for this lady, Miss Bertha Todd. And I truly love getting those phone calls, but she is truly what I would call the mother of our 1898 commemoration efforts here in New Hanover County. So here to bring remarks on the importance of our collaborations and joining together to recognize this important moment is none other than Mrs. Bertha Todd. Come on, give her a hand as she comes forward.
Can you hear me? Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to inform you of just how this effort began. 26 years ago, in 1995, a small group of white and black citizens were gathered together, some university professors and some of us community citizens, gathered together to talk about the growth of Wilmington, North Carolina, as well as New Hanover County. We talked about the beautiful city of Wilmington and the growth of New Hanover County. Then a group member who was present said, "But have you forgotten, or do you know about the dark history of Wilmington? We must work on that." November 10th, 1898, a massacre and a successful coup d'etat occurred. Much to my surprise at that time, I never knew that. The only successful one in the United States. A commemoration event would just be 3 years in the future. But we worked together, we worked with research, we gathered data, and God knows we spoke to every group here in New Hanover County. The event, a commemoration, a 100-year commemoration, occurred in 1998. One of the forefront individuals, the late Dr. Bolton Anthony and the late Lisbon Berry. The small group, black and white, worked mostly for 13 plus years. I guess I'm working 26. The 1898 Centennial Foundation was formed as a group, nonprofit, in 1995. The 100-year commemoration was held at Thalian Hall. The foundation was chartered, and several months following this event, Dr. Bolton moved to Chapel Hill, and Attorney Barra had passed. The late Luther Jordan in the Senate presented our effort to the North Carolina Legislative Assembly. And by the way, Bolton left me to carry on these goals. The Legislative Assembly hired LaRae Umfleet to do investigations. And that culminated, as former Senator Julia Bozeman told you about. In 2008, this park was dedicated. A book entitled Moving Forward Together, which was a theme I gave the effort, was also printed and edited by Rhonda Bellamy and Cy Cantwell. I want to say, since when Bolton left, the goals had not been completed. He really started on another project, if you want to know what happened, and left Bertha Boykin Todd to carry on, which I did to the best of my possibilities and efforts. Once the park was dedicated, and I certainly want to thank Chief Officer and Equity Coordinator, Chief Diversity Officer, for coordinating the group that are carrying on the period of reconciliation, which began after this park was dedicated. I can't thank her enough. I want to say that all of the individuals who are working with events, agencies, nonprofit, and individuals and groups, thank you for carrying on this period of reconciliation. I want to say the process of reconciliation will have to continue ad infinitum, long into the future. And I want to say best wishes and my commendation to all of you as you participate in the reconciliation process.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Todd. Several community leaders have done outstanding work in keeping 1898 and its historical significance in our community alive today. And here with us this morning just to share a few brief highlights on many of the events that are planned for the first 2.5 weeks of November. They're with us today just to give a brief overview. I certainly want to acknowledge them, and in this order, if they'll come and speak. First, John Jeremiah Sullivan with the Third Person Project, Jim Downey with the New Hanover County Remembrance Project, and certainly one that is no stranger to us. She is certainly a voice for the voiceless, a community historian, and one that continues to fight and keep the memory of 1898 alive, Miss Sonia Patrick. So if they will come at this time, John, Jim, and then Sonia. Thank you.
Morning. Can you hear me okay? I'm John Jeremiah Sullivan. I'm a writer for the New York Times Magazine, but I've lived in Wilmington for almost 20 years now. And I'm here representing Third Person Project, which is a research-driven nonprofit that a group of us started about 5 years ago. And we focused mainly on trying to push forward the historical research on 1898. It's amazing to look out into the audience and see some of the people whose prior work we are standing on and really just trying to expand. People like Dr. Todd and Tim Pinnock and Sonia and just many other people I see who have kind of gone before all of us in these efforts. It has been known for a long time that there are 2 massacre victims buried at Pine Forest Cemetery, which is the main historic African American cemetery here in town, and one of the most important black cemeteries in America. Period. Probably there are several or even many massacre victims buried at Pine Forest, but there are only 2 whose names have been preserved, and those are Joshua Halsey and Sam McFarland, 2 men who were murdered here in Brooklyn on November 10th. And that fact struck us as strange, that we know that so many people were killed here that day, possibly more than 100. It's not known and will never be known. But the number of names that has survived is very small. It's about 8. And something that really struck us and surprised us was that there had never been there were no surviving grave sites, known burial sites, where a person could go and stand and say, here lies a victim of the massacre, and perform the kind of traditional mourning and grieving that a burial and a gravestone make possible. We have this incredible memorial, thanks to Dr. Todd and other people, that honors all of the victims, and that has to exist. But this is more of a particular, more of a personal aspect of the grieving process, I think. So about 2 years ago, my colleagues at Third Person, Joel Fensel is here, one of the people who helped most in this initiative, and we took the coordinates, because it's been known, as I mentioned, since Lee Ray put out her state report, that 2 victims are at Pine Forest, and we had grave coordinates for where they were buried. The problem is that Pine Forest has used 5 different systems of grave coordinates over the course of its history, and maps have moved around, and so there were a lot of kind of inner contradictions to cut through to figure out where the graves might be. It took the whole 2 years to figure it out, and we had a lot of help along the way, including from the trustees at Pine Forest, Mr. Clarence Fredlaw, Dr. Lee Monroe, and finally we were able to locate the graves. One of them has a stone. There are no longer any letters or numbers on it. It's totally eroded and effaced, but there is a stone there. The other one does not have a stone. Joshua Halsey's grave and the plot where his family was buried, there was no stone there. So that really became the focus of the project, was to have a funeral for these men 123 years later. A very interesting fact I learned as we were doing the work is that there used to be a tradition, and may still be in the African American community here in Wilmington, that when someone died, you would first put the body into the ground. You would first bury the person. Then only later would you have the funeral. And so I've started thinking that this experience, this is that funeral, or will be rather, in November, but it's happening 123 years later rather than the week that would ordinarily have passed. An incredible thing has been, and this is just one of those things I don't know what to make of it. I'm not a mystical person, but sometimes you get worn down on that. At the same time that we were looking for Josh Halsey's grave and finding it, another project here in town, from whom you'll be hearing soon, they were trying to find descendants of the victims of 1898. Tim Pinnock and Jim Downey and the Equal Justice Institute, that's the people I'm talking about. And they wound up having luck with one victim's family, and that turned out to be Josh Halsey, the same person whose grave we were in the process of identifying. So now this beautiful experience is happening that no one ever could have planned or even anticipated, which is the family coming back here in November and being present for the funeral for Josh Halsey, and actually participating in the design of the gravestone and things. It has just turned into something so moving and powerful that I've started thinking of myself more just as a spectator. I'm glad that some of the work was done through us, and I'm hoping, I suppose I'll say as a final thing, I'm hoping that all of this work, everyone here, all of this energy, the things that are going to happen in November, which I think are going to be unforgettable, we have to make sure that it counts for social justice here in Wilmington. It can't be ornamental. It can't be done just for the purpose of having the experience ourselves and feeling good about, being on the right side of history. We have to make sure that it matters in a material, practical way for the needs of the African American community here: health care, housing, food issues on the north side. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think November is going to be a real engine of further change here. As Mayor Sappho mentioned, there has been a lot of positive change recently, and I hope that this will strap a rocket to it. And just last thing I'll say is Linda and Evelyn Bryant with the City Diversity Office, since we connected with you two, it has just become a completely different experience doing this kind of work, and I think I speak for a handful of people here. Suddenly to feel that kind of support and know-how, really, because you get things done in a way that I've rarely seen. So thank you. We're just proud to be a part of what's happening here, and I will yield the microphone.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jim Downey, and Tim Pinnock and I are co-chairs of the New Hanover County Community Remembrance Project. And the Equal Justice Initiative out in Montgomery, Alabama, has a legacy museum where they are collecting soil samples from all the counties in the United States where some form of racial terror took place. A few of us had visited that museum and came back to Wilmington and thought, okay, we need to do something for Wilmington. So our project is to go out and collect soil samples from 4 different locations where we know the names of people who died in these locations, We're going to bring that soil here to the 1898 park on November 6th at 2 o'clock. We're going to have a few speakers, and we're going to do a ceremony where we transport the soil that we've collected into jars. Each jar has a victim's name on it, and those jars will go back to Montgomery, and we have a duplicate set of jars that will stay here in New Hanover County. The people at Kids Making It have made us a beautiful display case where these jars are going to be available to store it, and we're going to keep these jars in New Hanover County and moving them around to different locations so people can see them and learn from them and realize their significance. So the day of the event, November 6th, we're hoping for good weather. We plan to put a table across the front here and have these jars. There'll be a few speakers. People come up and put soil in the jars. We're going to live stream the event in the case that people can't make it to the park. But if they can, we encourage them to come early because we expect a lot of people. Bring lawn chairs because we're limited to how many chairs we are going to have. The parking is on the street. There will be limited parking here, but over in this section we're going to have a large tent with 100 chairs just in case it rains so we can continue our event, rain or shine. And of course we'll be following all of the COVID protocols. So there is a press kit that I've prepared for anyone who wants it. They have the information from EJI, from our victims, some background on their personal stories, and just a cover page to talk about our coalition and the work we've been doing over the last 2 years. So we hope everybody comes on November 6th, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sonia Patrick. I currently chair the National Black Leadership Caucus, Southeastern Region. I'm also the founder of the 1898 Massacre Observance Committee here in Wilmington, which consists of 65 organizations of all racial backgrounds, community leaders, public officials, and concerned citizens. And I'm very pleased to be here today and to see the awareness that has grown over the decades to bring healing to this city. Our mission to serve through reconciliation, education, awareness of the 1898 massacre and coup d'etat, the only successful government takeover in this country's history, happened on this very soil. 4 blocks away, Reverend Dr. Kirk pastored Central Baptist Church, a historically black church here in Wilmington. I can trace my family's histories back to the late 1800s. My great-grandmother was a founding member of that church. And in the 90s, the late Kenneth Davis, the father of Kevin Spears, told us about Dr. Kirk. Well, we knew he was a pastor there, but we had no idea about the 1898 massacre. That's how hidden it was. The white ministers waited outside of the church with guns while they thought he was in there doing a service. Since then, Dr. Kirk, he escaped with his life. He is the only pastor with a written account of the event. Even during that time, it was very hard to get awareness of Dr. Kirk's struggle and his historical significance to this nation. 12th Street Baptist Church, he also pastored in Boston, Massachusetts before coming here to Wilmington. He was a target of the white supremacy group. And I'm very pleased and very emotional that on November the 10th, this city, and also not only the city but the state of North Carolina, will erect a marker. November the 10th, noon, on 3rd and Red Cross Street. We are very pleased that his name will be remembered. Also, we have different other events that we are going to have during this week of events. We cannot talk about reconciliation without talking about reparation. We will have a virtual. There will be attorney L. McShirley along with Letty Gore and Beth Mesquita. Excuse me. We will have a meet and greet on November 9th. The descendant of Alex Melly right here at Cape Few Museum. Following that, the viewing of the Red Cape. November 3rd, right here at this very memorial, we will have a history session about the 1898 memorial. So thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you there, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, everyone. Please don't forget to check out our webpage. That is diversity.nhcgov/1898. And you can get all the latest information and dates, times, locations, registrations for webinars. We have about 11 different events that are scheduled for the first 2 weeks of November. So if at any time right now we want to pause for any questions the media might have. Do you have any questions of us today? We certainly want to thank our local news media for many of you are streaming this live on your social media sites. We also want to thank New Hanover County and the City of Wilmington's public TV stations for streaming this live as well on the county and the city's social media pages. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate all that you're doing, and we certainly want you to be a part of every event we're having. Thank you and have a wonderful day.